Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella. Discover the dark side of love in this goth and lovely romance with Spinsterella. Get Spinsterella in paperback and e-readers at your favorite online bookseller today. I haven't worked for a full-time employer in years, and when I hear about black men getting good jobs and messing them up, it really makes me angry because when I look at how hard it is for me to get a job opportunity here in New York, it really upsets me when I hear about black men getting these good jobs and messing themselves up because I know that the impact of their behavior, it will not only impact these young black men, but they will impact the hiring patterns that affect black men all across the country. Now, recently we had two incidents where two young black men decided to steal from the company. In one incident, we had a black male who was hired as a seasonal UPS worker decide to start stealing the electronics that were on the truck he was supposed to be driving and doing his deliveries on. And in another incident, we had another young black male out in Charlotte, North Carolina, who had gotten a very good job working at Wells Fargo Bank. And after being entrusted with the keys to the vault and handling the money, this young black male decided that he was going to start stealing from the company to finance a lavish lifestyle, and he was going to broadcast that lavish lifestyle on social media. Now, when I take a critical examination of both of these young black males, I see two young black males who were probably raised in a single mother household. And I wrote about this in an article on the NegroManosphere.com talking about how boys who are raised in single mother households learn her work ethic, and in her work ethic, they don't regard their work as anything they need to take seriously or take any sort of serious responsibility for. And now, when it comes down to black men, they have to take their work seriously because these opportunities at getting good jobs are rare. And this is what these boys would have learned if they had a father in their life. They would have learned that when you are a black man out here, you are judged by a completely different standard. So that's why your behavior has to be on point when you are on one of these jobs, because oftentimes many of these employers don't want to hire you in the first place, and usually if they do hire you, they are expecting you to go out here and participate in some sort of criminal behavior, because what they want to do is passively hire you, and then aggressively, after you make a mistake, use that as a justification for not hiring any other black men. Unfortunately, these two young black males did not get the memo on how hard it is a struggle for a young black man to get any sort of job, whether it be part-time or full-time. And this is why you have to conduct yourself in the most professional manner when you are on that job, because you are not just representing yourself on these jobs, you are also representing the entire black race. And if your behavior is a criminal type behavior, what's going to happen is you are going to make it harder for the next brother in line when he tries to go apply for one of these jobs, or the other brothers who are on these jobs. And these two young men, sadly, did not get that message taught to them by a father or other men who were working on jobs in the community. And because of their behavior, this is what's going to make it harder for any other black man out here to get any sort of work from either UPS or your Wells Fargo, because people want to, when they give somebody a job, like they want to trust you, and it's hard to trust an individual who wants to go on these jobs and wants to start thinking about stealing. And again, this is the stereotype that has been perpetuated about black men. And here we have two young black men who blow a very good opportunity at working at both of these good jobs, and they mess it up because they only thought in the short term and not the long term. Now, I learned working in retail and working at places like the City College Science Library that you have to be indifferent when you are on these jobs, because that indifference is going to keep you from being tempted by whatever is in front of you. And I also worked in a food emporium back in the 1990s. And again, I worked with indifference because I didn't see anything in the store as so valuable that I would be tempted by it. Because when you go into a store and you start seeing the merchandise and you start getting tempted by it, what's going to happen is you're going to wind up losing a lot more than the value of that merchandise. And again, that's something that the fathers did not teach these sons, that when you go in these jobs, again, none of that merchandise in that store is worth your intangibles of manhood, because your intangibles of manhood have a higher value than anything in a store or even that money in a bank. Because your intangibles of manhood, these are the things that should have the most value to you. And these things include your dignity, your self-respect, and especially your freedom. And that's the thing that I thought about whenever I would go work anywhere where there was expensive merchandise, like when I was working at Food Emporium with the high-priced grocery items and the high-end gourmet grocery items, or when I was working at the City College Science Library with these expensive medical books. I said to myself that my freedom is worth more than anything in these facilities, and that's how I could go in those places and come right back out and leave all of that stuff there, because I would rather be able to go out here another day rather than take a stupid risk, take that stuff, and then wind up getting locked up. Because what these guys didn't understand, because they were so caught up in their emotions about the short term, was that when it comes down to money of that merchandise out here, that merchandise is tracked. When you have a UPS truck, all the merchandise on the truck is logged into a system, and that system has the name of the driver. Moreover, the facility that these merchandise is being shipped has cameras all throughout it, so they know whose truck it was on and who loaded it. And it's just a matter of connecting dots. Now, in the case of a Wells Fargo, the bank itself has cameras all throughout the bank, whether it be on the floor or the teller area, or especially, the vault. There are cameras everywhere. So that individual in Charlotte, North Carolina, he was too caught up in his feelings to understand that security was watching him all throughout the day. Because that was something else I learned in training at retail, is that there are cameras everywhere, and that's why you need to make sure your behavior is on point, because when you are in these facilities, you are being watched every second of every day, and everybody knows what you did during the day, and they can take that tape of that evidence inside the facility to convict you. And this guy actually made it easier for them, because he went out here and bought himself a brand new Benz with $20,000 in $100 bills, which was probably in a sequence, because when you have stacks of $100 bills in a bank, they are all sequenced by a serial number. So that was easy to trace right there. And it was also easy to trace him by the pictures he put up there of himself being broadcast on social media. So both of these cases, we had two individuals who thought they were going to be so smart, they were going to outsmart the system and make some fast money. But what they didn't understand was there are some things worth more than money. And a man's intangibles of manhood are worth more than money. And when a man compromises his intangibles of manhood, he winds up putting himself on a road to going to prison. And that's where these two individuals are going, because they didn't look at the big picture. They only thought small, and they only thought short term. They only thought about the now, and they did not think about the later. Now, as a man, if I were to get one of those jobs, I would not be thinking about the now. I would be thinking about the later, because I would leave all of that merchandise in that UPS truck. I don't care how much it costs, because again, my freedom is worth more than the merchandise in that truck. And I would leave all that money in that vault, because my freedom again is worth more than that money in that vault. And I understand that when you get a good job like this, what you have to do is make efforts to try to keep that job, because if you can keep that job, you can start building a life for yourself. Because if you can keep that job for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you can start building up enough money to do things like get your own place or put a decent down payment on a good used car. You can start focusing on building your life, and you would have no criminal record, lots of good work experience, and you would be able to start moving yourself forward, whether it be by either going to school or by looking for another better job. But because these young men probably came from single mother households and received no guidance from working class men, they didn't understand how to take this opportunity that was given to them and start using it to start laying the foundation for building the blocks to start their life. Because that's what I would do if I were offered a job opportunity like a UPS or a Wells Fargo. Now, I would take that job opportunity and appreciate that job opportunity for what it is. And I would do my best to do the best job possible when I was on that job. And I would work as hard as I possibly could to maintain a professional reputation in that time. That's what I would do if I were offered that kind of job. And I wouldn't care if there was $1 million sitting in front of me. I would leave that $1 million in that bank vault. And I don't care if there was super expensive Apple supercomputers inside of a UPS truck. I would leave every last one of those Apple supercomputers inside of that truck, or make sure they got delivered to wherever they went. Because, again, I understand that my freedom is more important than the merchandise in that vehicle. And I would rather get that merchandise where it needs to go and maintain the intangible of my reputation, my dignity, my self-respect, and especially my freedom, because I would have the freedom to go out here and build something of significant value that no one could take away. And I would have no fear of somebody wanting to take away my freedom, all based on an accusation of something being stolen, because I would have the records and the manifest to show all of that merchandise and all of that money would be in the place that it belongs. But what's really sad here is that these young men are not receiving the guidance that they need to understand how to survive on these jobs. Because to see two young black men go out here, get two very good jobs, and then watch them destroy themselves on these jobs because they didn't have the discipline or self-control to be able to walk past this merchandise or walk past this money. They didn't understand the big picture as related to black men and how hard it is for black men to get a good job, nor did they understand how hard it's going to be for the next black man to get a job out here. Because when it comes down to black men, again, we have the hardest time getting jobs. We have the hardest time keeping jobs. And oftentimes when we get on these jobs, oftentimes people are looking to get us off this job, whether it be the white racist, the Hispanic racist, or even the black women. They are all looking to get us off these jobs, and they're oftentimes looking for an excuse not to hire any other black man. And that's what's really sad about this situation, is that these young black men, again, they were not taught why it's important for you to just come in, clock in, focus on your work, and then clock out. Because when you mess up opportunities for other brothers out here to find full-time employment. And for these guys, again, to have the opportunity in their hands shows me how much they were taught to take life for granted by their single mothers, because only a single mom would sit there and tell these and not teach these boys about how hard it is on these jobs, how so many racists are out here on these jobs, and how everybody has an expectation of you to fail, and how you have to overcome all of those expectations and push past these stereotypes and start focusing on your own success. Because the only person who is going to get you to the next level is you, and you have to have the right mindset to get yourself to that next level and say, look, I'm here at this job. It's a UPS, it's a Wells Fargo, it's a good opportunity for me. What I need to do is just come here, do my work, save my money, and start building with my own money, and not worry about anything going on here. Because if I start getting tempted by this merchandise, by this money, I'm going to mess myself up. And again, it really angers me to see young men mess up not only a good job, but mess up their own lives, because they don't get the guidance they need to be a man out here and understand what a man needs to do in order to survive out here. Because when you are a black man, you have to understand, again, I know people get annoyed with me for repeating things, but this is something I want black men to drill to their heads, because it's something I lived every day of my life ever since I was in my 20s, and that is, it is very hard for a black man to get a job out here. And when you get a job out here, you need to appreciate it, because you are going to run into a lot of people who are scared of hiring black men, and some of those people are black themselves, people who are racist and don't want to hire a black man, and people who believe all sorts of racist stereotypes about black men. And that makes it harder for any other black man to get an opportunity out here. So when you get an opportunity at a full-time job or a part-time job, you need to appreciate it, you need to value it, and you need to do what you need to do to keep that job as long as it's legal, and you need to keep your professional demeanor about you on that job. And that's something that's important, because as my late father used to say, a little something is better than nothing. And this is what most black men aren't thinking about when it comes to these jobs. They're thinking about getting the big money, not understanding the small amount of money is worth something, because at least you have something that you made yourself, and that's better than having nothing and living off your parents or your woman. So having one of these jobs, it's a good thing for you, and you need to protect it, you need to preserve it. That was something I learned at the Strive Job Readiness Program over 19 years ago when I was working at AmeriCorps Vista. And this is something black men need to understand, is that these jobs, again, they're hard to get, they're harder to keep, and the way you behave may be the difference between another black man getting a job or another white or non-black man having that same job, and them working together to keep you out of the job market. And these guys practically blew it for black men with their behavior. And the reason why they blew it is because, again, there were no men there to teach these boys the life skills they would need to survive in the world, because the way a man survives is completely different than the way a woman survives in this world. And because these black males had these work ethics from a single mother household where she can just participate in any sort of ratchet behavior and then up and quit, they learned that they could participate in the same ratchet behavior. Unfortunately, the world works differently for black men than it does for black women. And when these black males got caught, this is the thing that wound up derailing their lives, because once you get a felony conviction on your record, that means it's going to be next to impossible for you to get a job. And when you get a felony conviction on your record, you're practically finished as related to the job market. So these black men, they messed up their lives thinking about the short term, not thinking about the long term, which is 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. And
10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, these guys are going to be looking back at the mistake that they made right now and realizing they messed up their opportunity to take themselves into the middle class and take themselves to the next level. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to learn more about how to conduct yourself in the workplace as a man, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in the Workplace, in paperback and Kindle formats, or my other men's issues books, like The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com by clicking the link in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller.